Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Nevada Assembly Republican Caucus Town Hall. We are so glad to have you here with us. My name is Michelle Mortensen. I am the Communications Director for the caucus, and as with me always is Assemblyman Gregory Hafen, who is also the Minority Leader, so that we can get you up to date on everything that has been happening so far in the session. Which, Greg, it's almost the end of the session. Can you believe it?
Yes and no, Michelle. There's been a lot. I think we've got about 30 something days left. But we're basically we're at basically the halfway point when it comes to my position on the budget committee. And we just had a couple of big deadlines. We had the committee house passage, and then we had the first house passage, which means that all of the bills had to come from the assembly and get sent over to the Senate unless they're in the budget committee or exempt, and vice versa. Senate bills came over to the Senate, so now we're starting to hear those. So when I say we're at the halfway point, it means the bills have now crossed houses and are over in the other house. And then we have our big day tomorrow, which is the Economic Forum, which is going to tell the state exactly what our budget figures need to be. And so that give us a little over 30 days to navigate and set the budget for the next biennium. And I'm happy to dive into that a little bit further, Michelle. But before I do, I wanna highlight this nice trophy that we have here because Republicans won again. That's 4 straight sessions. We won the donkey versus elephant basketball game, and proud to coach. And I actually stepped in the game for a couple minutes because we only had 6 players, so I decided to give somebody a breather real quick and step on the court for a couple minutes. So my knees are a little sore, back's a little achy, but we're here. Lots of fun. Blew out the Democrats. I think it was 30-11, and they just put up a couple baskets at the end. And so, but lots of fun and all in good time. Raised some money for some of the local charities up here, which is always a good thing. Speaking of raising money, Economic Forum is tomorrow. They start early in the day, probably get the final numbers about 3:30 in the afternoon. And I'm sure everyone's been hearing, what the Democrats have been saying, and a lot of the media people, both social media influencers, mainstream media, everybody's saying it's doom and gloom, and we're headed for a recession and all these other things. And so I just want to put everything in perspective for everyone, and that is that we had the technical advisory committee of the Economic Forum, which is roughly, they set 10% of the budget. They came in at 2.3% lower than the December numbers, which are the numbers that the governor used for his recommended budget. So we're talking about a reduction about it's going to end up somewhere between 2 and 2.5% reduction in the budget. And so is that recession territory? No, that is not recession territory. That is just simply we're not going to have as much money as we thought we would. And so we've been preparing for that also, though. We've been making cuts to various agencies, and what we've been trying to really do is not fill new positions that were being recommended by the agency, not expand programs. We really want to ensure that we keep our good staff that we have. We've always run a very lean ship at the state level. And so we want to make sure that we hold on to our current staff, not have to cut essential services. And so the first things that we're doing is looking at, okay, where were the agencies trying to grow? Is it necessary? Do they need the extra staff members, or do they not? And so I can tell you right now, as of yesterday, we had cut $135 million out of the budget. And today, I didn't run the numbers exactly, but we were $50 to $65 million that was cut. There was 2 subcommittees, and so I only sit on the one. I don't have the exact figures, but you add that up, and we've already made roughly $200 million in cuts. There's still a little bit ways to go, but these were easy cuts. These were not new. We're not going to fill new positions. We're not going to expand programs that just because they want to. There are some that we do feel we have to do, and so we're doing that. And so, uh, some of you have probably heard that the Secretary of State overspent his budget by about $750,000 that he was not authorized to do. And so the Democrats have passed that out of committee, and the Senate passed it and sent it over. It was completely party line. But what I can tell you is that yes, they're trying to give him the money that he already spent. It's not like we can go back and pull it away from him. But what we are doing is we are cutting his budget by $4 million. I went on the record and I asked his staff, "We're cutting your budget by $4 million. Are we going to be back here next session in the same situation where you overspend your budget and now you're asking us to backfill it?" And the answer was very clear. No, we will not be back. We will live within our means. And so we've sent the message very clear that to these agencies, your budget is your budget. When we set it, and you cannot go over your budget. And now it's even more important because we are looking at a reduced budget now.
And I want to kind of reiterate that a little bit more and really stress it, because while you were giving that great explanation of the cuts that you've been able to make, Teresa said, you've got to get the Democrats to stop spending the state's money at every turn. Well, you just pointed out Secretary of State overspent the money. Now he's asking to be bailed out. And you guys said, hey, now we're not going to keep funding your overspending. You guys also, I don't know that there's been a ton of reporting on this, but you have also cut a lot of taxes. And the reason cutting taxes that the Democrats wanted to spend, they want to make sure that we're getting taxed to death. You guys are stopping that at every turn that you can, which is great, because from an economic perspective, when times might get a little tough, that's when you want to tighten the belt, but you don't want to get rid of the things that the people actually need. And we don't want to hurt people even more during these potentially tough economic times. So I don't know if you've gotten enough praise for that, but you guys have done an amazing job cutting the fat, cutting the spending, and making sure that no new taxes are coming our way. So kudos to you guys for that.
Yeah, there was a couple of proposals for increase to the business taxes. We were able to kill some of those. We did kill, well, actually, I think the digital tax is still alive. It's in the budget committee, but it doesn't have support. We're not going to support that. We really can't be doing new taxes right now. Not only is the state looking at a reduction in about 2.5% in its budget, but everybody at home has been dealing with inflation that was caused by the Biden-Harris administration, and had to tighten down the belt. And so we're doing the same thing at the state level now. We're seeing the effects of the Biden inflation, and we're ratcheting down our belt. And I'm going to give the Democrats credit here. They're doing it right along with us. Yes, they funded the Secretary of State's budget backfill, but they also voted in favor of cutting his budget by $4 million. So there is some bipartisan efforts to reduce the spending at the state. Again, they have proposals to raise taxes where we don't. I think PK O'Neill actually had a bill. It might be still in the budget committee, but it's not moving anywhere fast to actually reduce the business taxes. And so, I thought that was a great bill to try to give some relief to our businesses that are employing all of our employees throughout the state. But I don't think that that's going to get another hearing. So.
Let me ask you a question that I don't know if this is happening at gas stations all over Nevada, but I can tell you for sure they're happening at gas stations here in Vegas. When you go and fill up, you get this little video saying, tell the assembly to vote against AB 560, the fuel tax, if you will. And I believe that gives, well, I'm going to let you describe that bill. And did I get the number right? Is it 560, the fuel tax bill?
No, I think it's 530, and
Okay.
I voted against that bill. We're not seeing those ads being run up here.
What's it about, though? Talk to me about it, because there's a lot of talk about it up here. What is this fuel tax bill all about?
So there's the fuel indexing that Clark County had implemented. They were supposed to go back to the ballot. they missed their deadline to get it on the ballot, and so Clark County had requested that the legislature give them authority to extend it for a few more years so they could put it back on the ballot. We pushed back, and we were able to say, okay, look, whenever we have to propose a tax increase, it has to be a 2/3 vote of the legislature. And so we were able to, when I say we, I wasn't at this table, but those that were at the negotiating table says it's going to be a 2/3 vote of the county commissioner to extend it, and then it has to go to a vote of the people. We understand you missed your deadline. Fine, you want to blame it on COVID or whatever you want to blame it on, but we want to put limitations on it, restrictions, make it more difficult for the county commission to do it. And so they voted to enable the county commission with a 2/3 vote, like we have to do whenever there's a fee increase, even if it's a dollar increase. And then after that, it has to go on the ballot for the people to say whether or not they want to keep it or not.
So, so this would not necessarily make it's allowing the county commission, it's giving them more time to put it on the ballot, and then the people would decide.
Yeah, and the county commission does not have to extend it. The county commission could stop it if they so chose. And so it's just it's enabling language to allow the county commission to do that. Um,
But you were
again,
still a no, and I think
I
that needs to
was
be noted. You were still a no.
I was still a no. I think they should have put it on the ballot. And so it went over to the Senate House, and if it passes the Senate, it will go to the county commissioners in Clark County, and this is only for Clark County to make a decision on what they want to do, if they want to do that or not. So
Let's talk about AJR1 as well. I think it's AJR1, the property tax bill. So this is one that you were also adamantly against. This would, I think, allow us to raise or allow property taxes to be raised a substantial amount. The only So this bill is bad all around, but one of the bright spots about it is it's not really giving the power to the legislature to make that decision. It is once again saying the people need to vote on this one. Is that correct?
yeah, it's a couple components to that, Michelle. One, it changes the property tax formula, and the calculations that were presented to us is that it would raise taxes by $13.3 billion
Wow.
over a 10-year period. Um, and originally, it had a bunch of I want to call it DEI exclusions, where if you fell under a certain category, you didn't have to pay property taxes at all.
Mm,
And so now you're raising property taxes on some, you're giving exclusions to not have to pay property taxes for others. It was really bad, Michelle. And
yeah.
so the bill sponsor did amend it. So it's just the increase, and it's an increase on everyone. She took out the exclusions, and it will go to a vote of the people. The governor, when it comes to resolutions, the governor doesn't have the authority to veto them. It does have to pass our legislative body twice before it goes on the ballot. And if we can get a majority in either one of the houses, we could probably prevent it from even going to the ballot. And so,
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. But again, their own presentation said a $13.3 billion tax increase on our citizens. And so, to me, I couldn't support that. I did appreciate the amendment, and I gave the bill sponsor credit for that. That she did limit it to the single subject and not have all those exclusions in there. But at the end of the day, like I can't justify increasing taxes on the Nevada citizens by $13.3 billion.
Yeah, that nobody should want that. I think that would fail huge if it does go to a vote of the people. Staying with the tax theme for a little bit here, the CCRP, Clark County Republican Party on Instagram said, "Thank you for voting to protect Nevadans against taxes." Pauline said, "Thank you for fighting against digital taxes." She also said, "The fuel tax, so unpopular here." And I do know that to be true as well. I'm curious though, this year, are you seeing a big push from the other side of the aisle for more taxes because of this doom and gloom, Trump derangement syndrome, whatever you want to call it, that, the federal government is going to be taking away all of our funding and we just don't have money. So is this an abnormal year where they're trying to push so many taxes on us? Or is this really what we fight every 2 years in and out? They're always trying to raise taxes.
Yeah, no, it's every 2 years. There's always new tax proposal in this session in particular where, we don't have the revenue coming in. We're looking at about 2.5% shortfall. And so for certain projects, the only way to fund them is to have a dedicated funding source. And so there's been a lot of bills that come forward that will have a $2 fee here and a $5 fee here or a $100 fee here to fund certain programs that individual legislators may want to carry. I can say that on the vast majority of those, we have been able to kill those and have those taxes. Either the bill dies completely or the tax and the fee gets removed and it's a if funding's available type of language, and which there is no additional funding right now that won't be happening. But yeah, we fight this every 2 years. There's always new proposals. But we have been very, very successful. And I know everybody highlights the ones that did make it across the aisle, and nobody highlights the ones that didn't because we were very successful in killing things before they even got out of committee, or getting them amended to remove the fees and the taxes. And so I give credit to my fellow caucus members, both on the Assembly and on the Senate side. Really, really did a good job of pointing those out, calling them out, and getting rid of the majority of those.
We won't talk about taxes the entire time, but often whenever we do talk about taxes, we get a question like this. And Laura has asked it, and it's, where is our marijuana tax money going? And since we, legalized it here and said, hey, yeah, it can happen. This is a question the average Nevadan asks all the time. And so many Nevadans have no idea what is going on with that tax money. So can you give us an update on what's actually happening?
Yeah. So the vast majority of the legal marijuana tax revenue goes directly to education. There's a portion of it that goes to fund the Cannabis Compliance Board, but the vast majority of it goes directly into the education account. And for those that don't remember, last session, we increased funding to the education for K through 12 by $2 billion. It was the largest increase in the state's history to education. Part of it was due to the marijuana tax, but that's a very small portion. A lot of it comes from net proceeds of mining, our sales tax, and a few in our general fund. And so we did a really good job, and something that was probably a little overdue when it comes to funding our education last session. If you ask some, though, it's still never enough. And so everybody's still here hounding us saying we have to do more, we have to do more, we have to do more. And then I did also want to mention on the marijuana thing that the illegal illicit market is really causing the legal market to start to see a decline. And so we're not seeing the tax revenue from the marijuana facilities that we had been. And a lot of that is due to more people buying off of the illegal market rather than the legal market. And so, there's been some conversations about how do you crack down on that and stop the illegal market so we do get additional money that goes directly into education. It's just tough that, it's now a semi-legal product. And so how do you crack down on it? We're working on it. Don't have any good answers for you right now on that, though.
Well, since you brought up education and so much of the money is funneled there, and we were able to do so much for education last session, education is about to become another big topic in that Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro has her bill, SB 460, which really changes things for education. And of course, the governor has his competing bill, his education bill. And if you ask the average Nevadan, they probably think that more needs to be done to improve education here in the state. So education is a big issue. I guess a question that has to be asked is, even with what we did 2 years ago, how come we're not seeing much change with our stats? We're not getting better. The schools, we're still always at the dead last. We're still at the bottom. And just like you said, it's
We're
never
not
enough.
dead last. We're moving up, but it's slow. It's K through 12. It's gonna take a few years to start seeing the effects of all of the good things that we've been doing. Um, and so, and again, point this out. It's bipartisan that we all agree that we need to do something to help our education system. Um, and so, the governor's got some great proposals in his. He's got measures for additional accountability. He wants to do incentives for teachers that go into these underperforming schools and improve them by offering them incentive pay. And so, and another fun one is open enrollment, right? So a school is an underperforming school. How do you get those students to be able to improve? You do open enrollment. You allow them to go to another school in the event that the school is not performing. And then it starts spurring competition. And as we all know, that competition is what is going to help drive improvements in any market, whether it's the stock market or the education. And so lots of good proposals out there. I know some of them cross party lines, and I believe there's an assemblywoman who has the open enrollment stuff in one of her bills. The Senate Majority Leader, I think she has some of the same language that the governor has, and so there will be some improvements that we absolutely will be making when it comes to education. It's still early in that process. Like I said, we may only have 30 something days left, but we're only at the halfway mark.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Speaking of the governor's bills, Pauline had a question. She wants to know, how's the governor's safety bill doing? I think that's also known as his crime bill. We haven't had as much talk about the governor's bills for a while because a lot of them were exempt and they weren't getting in committees here till the tail end as well. So, what's going on with his crime safety bill?
So it was introduced and they got a hearing real quick. It was just like boom, boom, boom. Here, heard it, move forward. It was very interesting. The same thing with this housing bill, but then we haven't heard much else. A lot of that was because, excuse me, we had the committee passage, the first House passage. Um, so now I think that they're starting to get back to the negotiating table to see exactly, what we can move forward. What tomorrow we're going to find out what we can afford to move forward because a lot of things have large fiscal notes attached to it, and so we will know more of the direction that we can head with the crime bill, the housing bill, the education bill, et cetera, because they are large. They do have large fiscal impacts on the state, and we are looking at 2 to 2.5% reduction. And that, by the way, I don't have that for positive. That's just my estimate based on what 10% of the budget came out as, and yeah, I feel pretty good that that's about where we're going to land.
Okay, very good. Very good. Um, what's going on with the governor's housing bill? That's his other big initiative. Do we have much movement going on there? I know we've had some wins with the federal government and things that Donald Trump has. Um, what has helped with? What else is going on with that bill?
Yeah, I think the governor was able to sign the MOU with the BLM earlier this week,
Yes.
which was huge. It was actually earlier than anticipated. And when we look at the speed of the federal government, this is unheard of. And so that is a huge step in the right direction for his housing bill and his housing plan to try to get more attainable housing for Nevadans. And so that's the good news. The bad news is, again, same scenario as the education bill. We had our deadlines, and so we had to kind of put. I think those conversations and negotiations on that bill also were kind of put on hold until we get past those and we can see where the actual economic forum is. And so after tomorrow, we will know a little bit better on the direction that some of those things will be headed.
Okay, we have a question here from Mike. I don't know if it's a question or more of a statement, but it says, talk about Bill of Rights attached Nevada Constitution. What about judicial fraud? I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to get at? I was hoping if you saw it, you would know what he meant. Nope.
No, sorry, Mike. I'm not following the judicial fraud. But you bring up fraud, and we're talking about the budget, and this isn't something that really gets highlighted a lot. But it's been a couple weeks since I've gotten the numbers. But as everybody knows, President Trump has said that he wants to cut, waste and fraud. And since then, the state of Nevada has started to look into Medicaid and where we have waste and fraud, and we have been able to find $32 million that we've actually collected back. And a lot of it was not fraud, but billing errors by hospitals, doctors, etc. And we've been able to claw, I believe, 32. We've been able to claw all of the $32 million back into the state coffers. So I got to give staff, huge kudos on that. They're continuing to work on that. It was a 5-year look back on all of that, and it did generate pretty good chunk of change for us. And that was all due to, we call it waste and fraud, but most of it, like I said, was billing errors. There was some fraud, and I believe the federal government has actually prosecuted a couple of individuals for that, because most of Medicaid and Medicare is federally funded, and so, or at least they've arrested people. And I don't know if they've taken them to court yet or not, but it is in the works. And so that was another good moment for us to find that money that we should have been looking for. And yeah, what else you
All
got
right.
for me, Michelle?
All right. Cyrus has a question. He has offered a lot of testimony, and he says that when he's offering testimonies, offering his testimony, sometimes he is getting cut off by the chair. Um, I think there has been some talk about that as well, with others who feel like they have been unfairly treated in committee hearings. And that really has to do a lot with the chair, correct? Or the co-chair at the time, whoever's running the meeting. There's not much you can do if you're not the chair, correct?
No, the chair has the right to cut you off after 2 minutes. I can say though that if I'm watching the clock and she's watching the clock and it's only a minute 30, I can lean over and say, hey, they've got an extra 30 seconds, let them finish up. Normally they're pretty good and lenient and allow additional time, but I do know, Cyrus, there's been a couple occasions that I think I've been in the committee when you've been cut off. And so, sorry that happens. We do run it's a very short session, and so we do have to rush through some things. I don't like it. I think there should be more conversation, more debate when it comes to the bills, because it's important, right? How else are you going to know exactly, what the concerns of the people are, and the stakeholders, if you don't allow that debate to take place? There's times it's 2 minutes a person and 10 minutes in support, 10 minutes in opposition, and that's it. In a 20-minute conversation is not enough. And good examples today. We were in Health and Human Services, and what I thought was going to be a quick meeting, and it went for 3 hours, I think. And it was a lot of back and forth and debate and conversation. And so there are times, Cyrus, that we do have the good conversation, and there's other times, especially when it comes to deadlines, where the chairs don't exactly allow a lot of that to happen. A lot of it's because we are pushing deadlines and have to get a lot done in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Rose just said, she's watching on Facebook. She says there is lots of work going on at the legislature. So let's talk about that for a quick minute, because today being April 30th, I guess that means there's like 33 days left, maybe 32. We are in the do or die. And what are the next 30, 31, 32, whatever the number is, days going to be like for everybody? What's going to be happening for those who are not there? Tell us what that's like.
Well, let me just back up a little bit, Michelle, if I could. There's been 540 bills that have been introduced on the assembly side. We have voted on 244 of them and sent them um, over to the other house. And then I just want to highlight of those 244, 125 were Democrat bills, so 51%, and 31 of those were Republican bills, so only 13%. Um, and then we had the agency bills, which was 33 bills, another almost 14%. And then just so everybody knows, agency bills kind of go through the governor's office, and so they're kind of Republican bills, but they're also the state agency bills. And then there was the committee bills, which was about 55 of those, about 23% of the bills. And so when you start looking at things, we got about a third of the bills between the governor's agencies and the actual Republican bills that have been passed on to the assembly, which means if we did 244 bills that we sent to the Senate, they're sending probably very close to the same amount that we now have to vet on the assembly side in these 30 days. And then in the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, there's 170 bills that have some sort of fiscal impact. I don't think we're going to get to all of them, but we will get to a lot of those. And then there's on the Senate Finance side about 130 bills over in Senate Finance. And so there's still a lot of bills that have to be heard, workshopped, work sessioned, passed in the House, sent to the Senate, vice versa. And then obviously there'll be the times that we don't agree with the Senate and we end up in conference committee, which Michelle, I don't even think I've told you about conference committee, which there's no rules. Anything can happen. It can get dicey. Amendments can be dropped in there that have no relevance to the bill and whatsoever. So you gotta be very sharp. You gotta be paying attention in those. I was honored enough to sit through one of those last session. And it went exactly how we had planned it, and there were no shenanigans, there were no sneaky tactics. But those can get very, very interesting, and they're always within the last couple of days of session when there's a disagreement between the Assembly and the Senate.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. Drew has a question. I really like the question. It's probably one of the most favorite questions I've seen asked. What does success look like for your caucus for the rest of the session? What will make you feel like you did the most you could given your minority position? That's a darn good question.
Drew, I love the question. I'm glad you're here. Drew was in my office earlier this week, so thank you for joining. You really want me to tell the Democrats what success is going to look like, so they know exactly what not to give me, Drew. You're killing me. I don't want to give away all of my points, but look, at the end of the day, I went into this legislative session knowing that we were looking at the budget restraints and restrictions that we were looking at. So success to me is to come out of here with a balanced budget, which is our only constitutional mandate. We have to fund education first, and we have to pass a balanced budget. That's it. That's the only thing that we have to do. And if we get no bills passed, there's nothing out there, Drew, that for me is a big enough priority to sell my soul or to do something that I don't believe in. And so again, success to me is passing a balanced budget, funding education. Those are the only two things that we went into this session saying we have to do. I don't know if my son's watching. Michelle, are you?
I don't think he is
Never
because I
mind.
haven't seen.
I'll quote Rich DeLong, and then I won't add the rest of it. But Rich DeLong has a good quote when it comes to your bills, and it's date your bills all you want, but never marry your bill. You don't want to get too attached. Drew, you catch me one night. I'll tell you the rest of that conversation. But but it's true. Right now, we're in a position where we have to pass the balanced budget, right? And our options are to cut spending or to raise taxes. For me, I don't want to raise taxes. I want to cut spending. And so my priority is cutting spending. If we want to pass bills with large fiscal notes, it's going to require increasing taxes. And I don't want to do that. And so success to me is not passing taxes. And coming out of here with a balanced budget by reducing our spending.
100%. And that's why I kind of wanted to applaud again. We already talked about it, but your caucus has worked so diligently. These are the things that go on behind the scenes that the average Nevadan doesn't know about. It's not really reported on the media, but you have worked so diligently. And it's a great caucus to make sure that all these extra taxes and fees don't get brought on to Nevada conservatives. And because you guys are true conservatives, you know that smaller government means less government. So we don't need to have gratuitous bills and gratuitous laws just to say, oh yay, I passed something and made it into law. You guys really are focused on your main priorities, which is doing what's best for Nevada families and Nevada businesses.
Yeah, and like you said, it's a team, right? It's we. It's not me. It's we. Collectively as a team have worked great together. We have been very successful in that, Michelle. And like you said, most people don't see it, which is great. That means we're doing our job to make sure that it doesn't pass, right? It's only the things that pass the first house that people have caught their attention. And so to me, that makes me happy. You see the smile on my face. We've done a good job at making sure that the majority of the taxes that are out there and the fee increases died because of the work that we got done, and really working as a team. And I cannot emphasize that enough, that it is a team and we are working together, and we've got great staff who's still here tonight, working hard, plugging away, because I think there's still a committee hearing going, and they're getting everything ready for tomorrow's economic forum and trying to get us prepared as well as we can. And so I gotta give the team here lots and lots of credit.
We have a great team. All right. Another question. That's from Manny on Instagram. That's why I'm looking over here. And it's a great question, which I already know the answer to, but I want to make sure everyone else knows the answer. He says, can we count on you, Mr. Hafen, to not vote for the Hollywood studio bill that would give them tax credits?
So I can tell you that in its current form, I already voted no out of committee. The motion was to pass it out of committee with no recommendation, which normally everybody just votes yes because they're just going to move it over to the budget committee anyways. And I said no. In its current form, it does not pencil out. The return on investment, we would lose money. Literally, we would lose, I believe the numbers were 74 cents on every dollar that we give to Hollywood. And to me, I'm in the business world. I'm not going into business knowing that I'm going to lose money on this. I would rather keep my money in the bank, earning interest, than knowingly lose money on a proposition. Now, there's some other aspects where the county would make some money here and property taxes there. But right now, even with all of that, it is still a negative number. And so it's not there. I cannot support it in its current form. And I will say, there is a film tax credit program on our books right now. It's about 10 million, maybe 13 million per year, and it rolls over. And so there's $40 million on there, that I've told the guys that are proposing this. I go, you want that $40 million? Because I do see the benefit of this. Sure, maybe we can have that conversation, but they don't want $40 million. They want $1.5 billion. And we're talking about, we've got a budget deficit. We have budget problems. We can't afford a $1.5 billion proposal like this. I mean, unless you guys decide you want to pass the $13.3 billion tax increases on property taxes, then I guess we could do this. But to me, I don't want to increase taxes to fund something like that. It just doesn't make sense to me, and the math doesn't pencil out.
And I believe in some of our discussions that you and I had today, you've also seen in other states that have done this, that there was that backfire effect where you go into it thinking it's going to go one way, and then it really does hurt taxpayers more, and it doesn't really create the jobs that they're trying to sell us on. So do you know what states in particular you've seen that backfire happen?
Georgia's one in particular. They definitely saw it backfire, and you know, Michelle, like you said, that you don't see the jobs that you think you're going to get. Well, Hollywood actors are Hollywood actors, right? Like they live in Hollywood. They're going to fly to the location where they're going to shoot the film. They're going to shoot the film. They're going to go back to California. They're going to take their big payday back to California with them. And so all of the tax revenue that could have been generated by that individual buying a house, buying a car, shopping in the state, it doesn't happen like you would project like in Georgia, because they're taking their money, they're going back to California where their families live, where their kids go to school. And so it really, again, didn't pencil out for Georgia as well as they had projected. I think Hawaii's looking at it now, and I believe California is looking at actually doubling theirs. And if California wants to do what California does, fine, but we don't have to follow in their footsteps.
Is there anything that we are looking at to bring more diversity in our economic development here? I mean, there's there's a lot of things, excuse me, not to like about this Hollywood tax credit. I did like the idea though that we're trying to diversify here in Nevada, so it's not just all gaming and it's not just all mining. Those are kind of our two big pillars. Are we looking at anything though to bring more jobs, more diversity here besides this Hollywood tax credit?
Yeah. So those that don't know, we have what we call GoEd, but it's the Governor's Office of Economic Development, and it was established quite a quite a few years back. And the first big project was actually Tesla, right? Tesla wanted to relocate one of its battery manufacturing plants here in the state of Nevada. They did it up here in northern Nevada. And so there were some tax abatements that reduced the property taxes for them to relocate here. Those have now expired. And the state has actually made a very good return on that investment. It was small, right? We reduced their property tax by, I'm just going to throw a number out, 40% for the first 10 years, and then after that, they're paying 100% of the property taxes. And so, 60% of nothing is still nothing. And so, when you get 60% of the property taxes and you start looking at how that works, it has worked out as a positive for the state of Nevada. It has diversified our economy, and I know the governor's office of economic development is continuing to look at additional businesses. And the other thing that they've been doing is trying to help businesses that are already here expand by offering them some of the incentives that we have out there. Um, it it's been kind of an interesting time. A lot of those haven't come to fruition. There's some um, there's some things that the previous administration here in the state of Nevada had done that kind of hamstrung those guys a little bit. And so we're trying to take some of those restrictions away. We still have a little ways to go on that. But again, to me, I love diversifying our economy. I don't want to be just reliant on, tourism and mining. We now have manufacturing with Tesla and a bunch of the others that are up in the Story County area now, and so I do enjoy watching us diversify our economy. But I want it to be an incentive for everyone, right? Not just saying we're going to take 1.5 billion and we're going to give it to one industry. I'd rather see us diversify in multiple different facets, especially trying to help our local businesses grow.
Yes. Steve is watching on Instagram, and Instagram, we have people coming in and out all the time. And he has a question. We've already discussed it, but let's just answer it for him real quick. And it's very specific. Does the gas tax increase have enough support to pass? Just from what you've been seeing, do you feel that this one is going to pass out of the Assembly and the Senate and then go to the County Commission to put up a vote?
So it already passed out of the assembly. It's headed over to the Senate. I don't know where the votes are going to lie on the Senate side. I would suspect that it's going to be a close vote. Um, uh, I don't know, but even if it does pass, it still has to go to the county commission for them to vote, and again, it has to be a 2/3 vote by the county commission, and so um, that's kind of where it's at. It's got at least two more votes before it could be extended. And again, it's not a new tax. I want everybody to know it's an extension of extension of the current tax that are out there. Um, but again, gas prices are the highest or second highest in the nation, right behind third, right? But
California.
right
No,
behind
California and Hawaii, I think are ahead of
California and
us.
Hawaii are higher than us. And so, and we rely on California, right? Because they're where we get 80-90% of our fuel. And
And
so
we
we,
can't change that, correct? So many people say, well, why aren't we using pipelines in Texas? We just don't get to willy nilly create new pipelines and say we can get our gas from Texas, correct? Like this is how it's been done. Or is it?
it it's a cost benefit analysis, return on investment again. Um, the number of miles from Texas to Nevada is substantial, and so to build a new pipeline from Texas to Nevada, it's going to be very very difficult. Now we have had some interesting proposals for um, like alternative fuels, and for those that don't know what that is, there are ways of manufacturing like a biodiesel. Aviation fuel can do the same thing where you can refine it. You could actually refine it here in Nevada, and so there's been some conversations about trying to give some of these incentives to some of these um, they call them alternative fuels, um, to come into Nevada to try to help offset that. It's interesting because in California you can actually buy the alternative diesel. It's a biodiesel that's manufactured. Um, I put it in my diesel truck. It runs just fine. No issues. Maybe a little bit of decreased fuel economy. And so there has been conversations of trying to incentivize some of those refineries to come to Nevada, sell directly to Nevada in exchange for those incentives. Because what we don't want is to give incentives and then them just pipe it to California. Nobody wants to subsidize California in any way, shape, or form. And so um, we are having those conversations, but again, to build a pipeline, it's really really expensive. Had preliminary conversations with the Department of Energy under the governor's office here, and it's very very costly. There are some interesting proposals out there on how to make it work, but still not cheap.
Yeah, never is. All right, we've got another question that's education related. Should we redraw county boundaries, separate Laughlin, Boulder City, and Mesquite from the rest of Clark County with its own school district? Maybe have Nye County be separate. This is something that, at least in the Southern Nevada part of the state, this is talked about all the time. But I don't believe that can just be done willy nilly by the legislature because of what the Constitution says, correct?
Yeah, there's been talks of trying to create a new county. There was the proposal to create the Bullfrog County. Very, very difficult. And to me, and Cyrus, I think you and I have had this conversation on the phone a couple times. I would rather break up the Clark County School District. I think that's what needs to happen. Um, and there was a proposal last session to do a pilot program to allow some of the rural parts of Clark County School District to opt out, and it's basically Mesquite, Logandale, Moapa could create their own school district. And to me, I think that's what really needs to happen is we need to allow, especially the municipalities, to have an opt out clause. So then that would allow North Las Vegas, Henderson, Boulder City, the Mesquite Moapa area to opt out of the Clark County School District, form their own school district, take back local control. That's what I've been advocating for. Um, it's not an easy task, I can tell you that much. Just like Cyrus' proposal to break up Clark County and start moving those lines and creating new ones, not a very easy task. But those conversations continue to happen, and it's gonna take a lot. But we did get a new superintendent for the Clark County School District, Joan Ebert. Met with her today actually, and some of her team members were up here. They stopped by to talk to me about how they really want to improve the school district. And for those that don't know, she was the director for the Nevada Department of Education, and was appointed to be the Clark County School District superintendent now. So she jumped in from the good things we were working on at the state level to now trying to take that and implement it at the Clark County School District. And so want to give her time to be successful. I think that she's got a really good shot She's a very, very smart woman, and she's putting a good team around herself. So hopefully, we can do that, but it's still not going to change my mind. I think we need to have more local control when it comes to some of the outskirts and outlying areas of Clark County School District, just so they can have a little bit more control.
We've got a question from Scott. You kind of touched on this a little bit, but in case there was anything more to add, will Nevada ever embrace drilling for oil, have our own natural gas, nuclear, fossil fuels still always to be the future to make America go? Have we talked much about doing anything like that or bringing nuclear to the state?
So when it comes to drilling, there's not a lot of oil exploration that's currently being done, but there is a lot of geothermal energy that's being done, and that's a pretty interesting thing. There's a company up here called Ormat in just outside of Reno. They got a huge plant, and it's kind of neat because they are able to use the geothermal energy to create some power. As far as the nuclear stuff, I know that there's advances in um, what they call the small reactors, right? They're self-contained units that they're working on because there is such a large demand. And so I've been having some conversations. I just joined the Western Energy Caucus, I believe. No, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but so we can start as Nevada legislators start talking and communicating to the Western states to figure out exactly what's being successful for them, what's not being successful for them. I think a group of them are going to go over to Denmark and look at what Denmark's doing. Because they're doing some advanced stuff that's pretty interesting. I will not be going to Denmark. It's like the week after we get done with legislative session, and I'm like, no, I don't. I need to get back to work. I need to get back to my family. But thank you for the invite. They do have a thing they're doing in Colorado that I do plan on attending because I do want to learn more about what we can do, especially when it comes to these small self-contained nuclear reactors. And I actually told a few people that I think that Nevada actually should um, utilize the test site as a location for them to start looking at these small self-contained units. And they're doing them all over the country now. And so um, I think that that's a good location for it. But obviously there's a lot of pushback because most people don't want to see Yucca Mountain opened up to be the nation's nuclear waste storage facility. Um, and I'm not suggesting that in any way, shape, or form. But I do think that we need to look at alternative power sources and not just solar panels and windmills. And these small reactors are very, very intriguing and very interesting. They seem to be very, very safe. And so I think that we need to move there in that direction to start looking at it. I don't think that we're in a place to start doing that in the near future. But it is things that we do plan on to continue the conversation throughout the interim.
I'm curious as well. A few years back, question 6 passed. I think it was probably in 2018 or 2020. It did it the two times. That basically said our energy companies in the state, I think roughly had to be about like 30% solar by, I think, the year 2030. I hate to say it, we're getting there closer to that date every single day. It's already 2025 and it's almost half over. Are we seeing that happening? And are we seeing any benefits from that? I know solar is a dicey issue. There's a lot of places, Nye County in particular, they're not a huge fan of the solar farms. But I'm just curious, has there been any benefit as they've been getting closer and closer, or is it still too early to tell?
Um, Couple questions packed in there. First question I'm going to answer, Michelle, is are we there yet? And the answer is if we stopped exporting power to California and other states, we would have met um, our mandate by the people. And so we've done that. Um, and now the question is, though, is are we meeting that? And if you exclude the stuff that's going out of state and exporting to California and elsewhere, and I don't know that we're there yet. I know that there's a couple of solar fields, whatever you want to call them, that NV Energy is proposing, um, that still need to get up and running to make them be able to reach their portfolio requirements. As far as I'm concerned, Michelle, solar is only good when the sun's out, and you can't just rely upon that at night. And so that's where I think that natural gas is the best alternative that we currently have. I know there's some that want to bring back coal, but I think NV Energy's closed down most of their coal burning plants, and so now they've only got the natural gas going. Um, and so to me, we will never be able to get fully away from fossil fuels, at least not in my lifetime. Maybe there'll be some other new technology that comes out and um, that moves us into a new direction. But and again, you have these alternative fuels like the biodiesel that may help replace a lot of it. But again, you'll never you'll never be able to get rid of all of it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what the Trump administration does because I know they're against a lot of that green energy stuff that the Biden administration put forth, kind of putting mandates on cars and things like that. And of course, we're seeing electric cars; they're not doing as well as so many people had told us they would or wanted them to do. And so that will all be very interesting. But we are down to our last few minutes. So if anyone has any last minute questions, if you speak now or forever hold your peace, because this town hall is coming to a close. And just while we wait to see if there's any additional questions, we are going to try our very best to have a few more of these here in these last days of the session, correct?
We're gonna try. We may schedule them just so you guys know, and it may not be me that gets on. Being on the budget committees, we're gonna have a lot of, like I mentioned, there's 170 bills in Assembly Ways and Means, 130 in Senate Finance, and if we get to all of them, that means I have to hear 300 bills in the next 30 something days, and that doesn't even include the bills that are on my other committees. The 200 and some odd bills that passed out of the Senate. So a lot of work ahead, and so being on the budget committees, I may not be able to make all of them, but we're going to try to schedule a few more with Michelle. And again, it may not be me. It may be somebody else that's not on the budget committee, like Assemblywoman Hardy, and I know Assemblyman Gurr's been on once before, and maybe we'll get Hanson to come jump over here and jump on. I know they know the Hansons. They know the state quite well and have been doing this for a while. So we'll
Yeah.
try to have some good information from you, no matter who it is.
That sounds great. All right. Well, we appreciate you giving us this time today and keeping us informed. We really do value this. You know, there are not many other uh, members of the Assembly or the Senate who are doing this on a regular basis, keeping people informed. And I know that's always been one of your top priorities. You want to make sure that people know what's going on and that they have actual access to you, which is one of the big reasons why we do this. So thank you for that, as always.
No, it's my pleasure. Thank you everyone that joined in tonight. Thank you, Michelle. Thanks to my staff here, Tracy, Jack, Ryan, Cody, everybody staying late to get us ready for tomorrow's economic forum. And one last plug. I know that Michelle will be putting out some stuff on social media to let you know exactly how the economic forum turned out. So stay tuned. More to come on that. Hopefully tomorrow, late afternoon, early evening.
That's what I was going to say. It's late tomorrow. It's not going to be in the morning. It's going to be afternoon, evening, maybe 7 o'clock ish. Correct?
Yeah, the numbers probably won't come out till 3:30, which means I'm gonna have to spend some time diving through those numbers before we can get anything out. But we should have some baselines out, by early evening tomorrow.
Absolutely. And don't freak out if the mainstream media and a bunch of Vegas influencers try to tell you it's all doom and gloom. We talked about that in the beginning. There's still so much that we're doing, tightening the belt, but not doing anything to hurt Nevada families or Nevada businesses and the things that they absolutely need. So don't freak out if the mainstream media goes a little negative. All right. Well, Mr. Hafen, thank you so much for all of this. Thank you to everyone who joined us. I think we had one of our best Instagram audiences ever. I loved that. They asked more questions than ever before. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.